Very few sitcoms have managed to capture the painful, awkward, and downright hilarious side of modern life quite like The Peep Show did. From its debut in 2003, the show turned two dysfunctional flatmates into cultural icons, redefining British comedy with its unique first-person perspective. Listen, I did a video the other day on Little Britain and it got me thinking a hell of a lot about these kind of old school British sitcoms and comedies and comedians, and I couldn't stop thinking about Peep Show. And then I saw on television, as I'm watching the Great British Bake Off, in the ad break, that they're coming back, that there is another, not Peep Show, but there is another sketch show in the works. I thought, hey, whoa, it's like fate. I've got to do a video on Peep Show. So that's what we're doing right now. For those who forgot, a quick little recap. Peep Show followed the miserable lives of two friends, Mark, the socially awkward lone manager played by David Mitchell, and Jeremy, the delusional wannabe musician played by Robert Webb. But they had been performing together for years. They was a comedy duo from the days of university. They had a few small successes on the sketch show circuit, but it was Channel 4 that gave them their big chance, teaming them with writers Jesse Armstrong and Sam Bain, names that would later become legendary in TV shows. Things like Succession and Fresh Meat were written by them. The concept for Peep Show was simple but brilliant. A sitcom shot entirely from the characters' own point of views, with internal monologues, voiceovers and inner thoughts. Audience weren't just watching Mark and Jez, they were trapped inside the neurotic, selfish and painfully honest brains. It's brilliant. It makes so much sense now, but you gotta remember when Peep Show first came out, and this was the first of its kind. A lot of shows do this nowadays, where they do the internal thoughts and the outs, and there's that. But you've got to put yourself in the position of thinking, this had never been done before, and a bunch of people saying, why don't we do a comedy show? But also, in like random intervals, we'll hear what the characters are saying in their own brain to themselves, and it'll do that. So people would say, oh, well, so it's a point of view from a certain character. And you go, no, it's a point of view from every character will do. Everyone will do this. It's to put this on paper is really difficult. We only understand it so well now because we've seen it, and we only seen it because they did it. Now, when Peep Show premiered in 2003, it was not an instant mainstream hit. In fact, the ratings were actually painfully low. Remember, these two were unknown, so no one was tuning in based off reputation alone. At times, ratings were so low that Channel 4 even considered pulling the plug entirely. But what saved the show was critical acclaim and word of mouth. Fans who discovered it on DVD or late night reruns became obsessed, quoting the lines, dissecting the cringeworthy moments. They spread the word online. A small fan base had stumbled upon it. Probably, let's be honest, people around 18 getting drunk on nights out, coming home, putting it on TV, just kind of watching it, and then kind of enjoying it, and then really enjoying it, and then telling other people about it, and it just grew from there. Crazy when you think about it. By the mid-2000s, Peep Show was a cult phenomenon. Its awkwardness, relatability and brutal honesty resonated with young audiences who saw themselves in Mark's and Jess's failures. Slowly, it went from near cancellation to BAFTA-winning status. But behind the scenes, Channel 4 constantly questioned whether the show was worth keeping. Low ratings had made every season renewal a fight. You had Channel 4 saying, yeah, it finally did good in the end, but is it good enough for another season? And you had fans online who were actively campaigning to keep this show on TV. There were also creative tensions. The writers actually wanted to push the characters into darker and more miserable territory, while the network was like pushing for broader comedy appeal. Add to that the difficulty of filming in a POV style, with actors performing to camera rather than to each other. And every episode was just basically the whole show to put together and to run and to write was a logistical nightmare. Then came some controversy. The show was criticised for being too bleak, too crude, and even too depressing to be called comedy. But for fans, that was the appeal. So you couldn't exactly swerve from that. You couldn't say, well, let's lighten the mood a bit if the whole reason it's successful was because of its bleakness in the beginning. It wasn't trying to make life look glamorous. It was showing the tragedy of two men stuck in mediocrity. In the end, Peep Show ran for an astonishing 9 series, ending in 2015. Over its 12-year run, it became the longest running comedy show in Channel 4's history. After all of that, after all of the difficulty to get those renewals, it was the longest running comedy show. Crazy. By the final, Mark and Jez were right back where they started, stuck together in mutual misery. No happy endings, no big redemption, just the grim reality of two dysfunctional men who couldn't escape each other. But far from being forgotten, Peep Show's legacy online grew even after it ended. The quotes became meme-worthy online, and even today, keeping in mind this ended in 2015, fans still share clips daily. People are still rewatching it. It's still a cultural phenomenon online. There's still people that have never heard it just hearing about it now. And I think with social media, and especially TikTok and YouTube, pushing out a lot of things that were quintessentially British. Peep Show, much like Little Britain, is quintessentially British comedy. It does not do well overseas. But more and more with social media, we're kind of seeing that comedy take off. So now Peep Show, even though it ended 10 years ago, would you believe, is still finding new audiences overseas and in America. Now this wouldn't be a not so clueless video if I didn't mention where they are now. So let's talk about that. David Mitchell. He became a household name, dominating panel shows like Would I Lie to You and writing for newspapers. Robert Webb branched out a little bit, doing more acting and a few like TV appearances here and there, but he stayed relatively quiet, where David Mitchell went on to kind of continue, presenting and hosting and that kind of stuff. The writers, Jesse and Sam, went on to massive success. Case in point, HBO's global hit show Succession. But moving back to Mitchell and Webb, despite their separate careers, they often still reunite, proving that the magic of their comedy partnership did not end with Peep Show. Peep Show could have easily split them apart. Like I said, these two were on the comedy duo circuit since university together, and Peep Show was easily an opportunity for them to split up and go their separate ways, especially with the ending. But they never did. They never did. So the fact that there is a new Mitchell and Webb show is brilliant. Also, does anyone remember the Mitchell and Webb show? This was like a sketch show. I think it was before Peep Show. I'm going to have to Google that one, but that was hilarious. That used to be my show. You ever put something on to go sleep to? That used to be my go-to-sleep show. And there we go. That is the story of Peep Show. The legacy, the rise, the fall, and how it almost never was. But then it ended up becoming the longest-running comedy show in Channel 4's history. Crazy to think. I hope you've enjoyed watching this. If you've got any other shows that you'd like to see, drop in the comments. I'll do a video on those, and if you won't mind, hit that subscribe button. I don't know why I'm pointing to the top when it's below somewhere. I'll muchly appreciate that. Thank you very much.